Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. So the next project up kind of goes with the quilting desk. We kind of affectionately call it cabinet 5 because it really is the 5th cabinet that kind of goes with the quilting desk, but it's very much a standalone project. Because this table is not attached to that quilting desk, I needed to build it just a little bit differently. So what I've got here is about 30 board feet to get us started. And I'll put a picture down here in the corner of what we're building. Essentially, it's a large tabletop that sits just behind her that has a small ironing station, a small cutting station, and a tracing station. Now, the tracing station requires a light box. So the rightmost drawer, if you will, is actually going to be a false drawer. It'll have a glass top and it'll have a light box underneath it to shine light through whatever it is she's tracing. It'll have a lower shelf, handles to match, and probably an alder top in the 6/4 just like we did on the quilting desk, so that it all ties together and matches nicely. But that's what we're going to get after. So I'm going to go ahead and start breaking this material into nice usable chunks to get my sides and hopefully that lower shelf out of. But this will be some panel glue ups to get us there. Okay, so I've milled up just the lumber for the 2 side panels, and I have them nice and flat and kind of got the grains where I want them. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue these up. And I'm just going to use a rub method here. No dominoes, nothing really needed for alignment. If for some reason these don't pull out flat, I will use the drum sander and get them flat. But these seem to be really stable and doing nicely. And not a lot of pressure here. I don't want to bow the panel. I'll drop a couple over the top just to equalize that pressure. And we'll set that aside to cure for the night. I'll get the other one glued up and I'll see y'all in the morning. Okay, so I pulled the side panels out of clamps and overall they came out really well. I'm happy with how flat they are. So obviously some cleanup, some epoxy work to do and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and get these trimmed to pretty close to final size. And get a rough sanding on them, and then I'm going to come back and go ahead and fill my knots with epoxy, and then we'll start milling for the lower shelf, the middle shelf, and the top frame that goes in it, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the milling took me a little longer than I wanted it to, and I had some defects in my side panels that needed to be filled, and they still need one more coat. It is what it is, so I will fill these tonight and let them glue up. I also have the divider for the bottom of the drawers and the lower shelf. They're all milled up, and I just need to get them glued up tonight. As well, I have another piece of milled lumber here that I'll cut down into strips for what will essentially be almost like a web frame around the top. before the top goes on. I certainly don't need a solid panel up there, but I need some good way to attach the top. So that's what I'm going to do with this. So I'm going to set this aside for now. I'm going to get these two panels glued up and get this epoxy in here tonight. And then tomorrow I can sand these up and we can start working on the joinery. Okay, and just like the last panel, no need for dominoes for alignment. Long grain to long grain is plenty strong. And this isn't really a structural piece anyway. But we're just going to use the old rub method. And my joints are good. So we get them lined up. Get them all put in. Also, these panels are oversized, so they'll have to be cut down in the end. And it really is pretty minimal clamping pressure here because all the milling was good. Nice little squeeze out, get a couple over the top, and move on to the next panel. Okay, so this is the same jig that I used to locate the dados in the quilting desk and all those panels. So it was a good jig to hang on to because it works off of my center lines, which is what I've marked on these panels. I have a 3/4 inch bit in the router, and I've actually milled all the panels to fit this bit. Some of these bits are a little bit different, so this one is set up specifically for this bit, so I should have a good fit. I've set my depth at 3/8 of an inch deep, which should be plenty for this. And I've got a stop block. So the first groove I'm doing is the bottom shelf, and that whole shelf depth is only 14 inches, but I'm going to actually notch the end of it. So I've stopped my router short of that 14 inch, and then we'll square off that mortise and or that dado rather, and then notch the panel to go in when we fit everything together. So I'm not running dust collection on this because the dust collector would actually hit my stop block. And rather than reconfigure a quickie stop block, I'll just clean up a little dust. So that's what we're going to do. And when I'm done with this one, because I've set this jig, I just have to move it over to this panel, reclamp it down, and away we go. And just like that, that dado is cut. So now I'll just move the jig over to the other one, do the same exact one, and then I'll reset the stop block to do the divider panels. Okay, so I reset my stop block and it's all set up good to go. I don't change the height or the depth in the router, and this one's all set up. So I'll route for this divider below the drawers, and then I'll switch it over and do that one. And then we'll square off the ends. Okay, so next up I just need to square off of these corners, and I actually made a little jig that slides in the groove nicely, and it just allows me to mark those squares easily since I did have 4 of them to do. So all I'm going to do is just square these corners up. Okay, and there's the first look at a dry fit. Just a reality check before I go notching the ends. But the carcass is getting pretty close. I still have to cut the grooves for the back panel, trim the shelf and that divider shelf to their final width, which they're not. They're still oversized. And I still have to cut the rabbet in the tops for the web frame top to finish up this carcass. Okay, next up I need to go ahead and get the rabbet in the end of this side panel to accept that top web frame. I got a sacrificial fence on the saw, and a 3/4 inch dado stack in. And again, it's the same depth as the other grooves. So they're set at about 3/8 of an inch deep. And all we're gonna do is get these cut. I gotta cut both of these and then we'll reset up and cut for the back panel, and we should be ready to go ahead and glue up the basic carcass. Okay, so I've got the 1/4 inch dado stack set up in the saw now, and all I'm going to do is cut that rabbet on the back of each panel to accept the back of the cabinet. Okay, so as you can probably see over here in the background, I have some epoxy curing on the center shelf to take care of that little knot that was on the face front. I thought that was going to be cut off, but it wasn't, so I need to take care of it. In the meantime, I did a little bit of a dry fit here, and I'm good and square. I'm happy with that, but it gave me the measurements that I needed for this top web frame. It's just dry fit in there, held in with a couple of clamps. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this all out, and I'm just going to use dominoes and make this frame. At that point, I could probably glue this section up, leaving out this shelf for now, because I do have to get the dados cut in that center shelf for the drawer dividers. So I still have those to take care of as well. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and take care of the web frame. Okay, all glued up. We'll just let that cure for a little while. And we should be getting close to cutting those dados in that shelf. So there it is, all glued up. Still just got a little bit of work left to do on the carcass. I got to take care of the verticals that go between the drawers. So I'll get that material milled up. I've got to cut the back. The material is here, I just have to cut it to size. And I need to mill the material for the top. So I'm going to get after that stuff here quickly, and we'll wrap this video up. Okay, so I put the vertical dividers in that separate the drawer spaces, so that's all good to go. And the top is just set on there. The boards aren't final milled, they're not even glued together yet. So it's just a look to see what orientation I wanted the boards in and how they were going to go, etc. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and start milling the top. I'm going to do that off camera. You guys have seen me mill stuff before, so that'll be off camera. It's also going to wrap it up for this video. It's getting kind of long. So when we get after it again next time, we'll go ahead and install the drawers, install the light box, and get some finish on this and start wrapping this project up. So until then, take care, guys.